What's up, everybody? Bandit and Chad here for another Taco Tuesday. So we want to take this week and go over a couple more frequently asked questions that we do often get in the comment section. So, if you do ask a question down in those comment sections, we do try to get back to them as soon as possible. But hopefully, if we haven't gotten back to you yet, hopefully today will help you out a little bit. So one of the questions that we do often get is, when are we putting a lift kit on our trucks? When are off-road bumpers coming? When are we doing all kinds of high dollar modifications? And, I think I can speak for both of us here. We would love to do all that, but we are on a little bit of a budget here, and, we can't do that sort of thing every week. So tomorrow, actually, I will be getting something fairly sizable installed on my truck, and hopefully that all goes well, and I'll be sure to keep you updated on that. But if you do like what we do and you want to support us, spread the word, watch more of our videos. That does help us out, and the more videos that we get watched, the better off we're going to be, and the more modifications that we can make to our truck. So, if you want to see more, help us out, and hopefully we'll bring it to you before too long. Another question that we had recently this week, and I thought was a pretty interesting question, was if you lift your truck, can you still use the factory skid plates? You want to cover that a little bit?
Sure. If you lift your truck to a certain point, yes, you can still use the factory skid plates, but past a certain point, like Chuck's truck that we reviewed, you actually do have to get a different skid plate. It's one that has to be a bit skinnier so it can clear the size of the tires. For instance, with this RCI Fabrications skid plate, you can use that on any truck. I mean, I don't think it matters if it's lifted or not. Clearly, you can use it on mine. So I think, that pretty much answers that question.
Right. And Chuck, for his truck, when he ordered his Rough Country 4-inch lift, it did actually come with that skid plate. So obviously, RCI, like Chad has, or the Rough Country, or who knows what else, but there are definitely options out there. You don't have to run your truck without a skid plate if you do get a lift. And obviously, if you lift it past a certain point, you will have to do a diff drop in the front there, which will make you come up with a different skid plate at that point anyhow.
Right.
Another question that we often get, you may be able to see them behind us here, but we do have Carhartt seat covers in both of our trucks. Mine are the tan duck weave, the standard Carhartt color. Chad's here are the gravel gray. We did get those from Covercraft. We do really like them. They are water resistant and machine washable. They are a little bit pricey. I think they ran around $200 or so.
It's about that. Yeah.
But in my opinion, they're well worth it. And I've had cheaper seat covers in the past that have not held up as well. I've had mine on my truck for just about a year now, and they still look perfectly fine. So I would definitely recommend those if you're interested. And also, I believe Covercraft also has some other styles. If you're not a fan of Carhartt, they have other materials and other styles and colors and everything else. Right. So be sure and check them out if you're interested. Another question that we do often get is, here in these 2016, 2017, and all the third-gen Tacomas, you do have the ECT power button, and what that is referring to is the electronically controlled transmission. And basically what that does is it shifts your shift points a little bit higher in the RPM band. We don't use it a whole lot. Your truck with these smart transmissions does adapt to your driving style. So if you want it to shift later, just drive more aggressively, and eventually it will shift later. But I'm sure the ECT button could be used to some benefit if you were towing or something like that. But just for day-to-day driving, we don't use it a whole lot.
Yeah, it's not necessary.
So during these frequently asked questions videos, we do like to go over our fuel economy. We do get questions regarding that, how we're getting along with our trucks in terms of maintenance and everything like that. We do get those questions a lot. So in terms of fuel economy, it has been really, really cold down here the past month or two. So obviously that is going to affect fuel economy a good bit. The majority of the driving that we do on a day-to-day basis is just back and forth to school. I think I probably have the longer commute at probably 7 miles or so.
Right.
So, that's not a huge time to get the truck warmed up, get it running really efficiently or anything like that. But even in that time and in the colder temperatures, it's been 10 to 15 degrees a lot of mornings recently. It is starting to warm up now. But in those colder mornings, we are getting, maybe 17, 18, 19 miles to the gallon instead of the 20 to 21 we had been originally. This morning, it was about 50 to 55 degrees, and on my commute, I did get just over 20 miles to the gallon. So obviously, your fuel economy is going to change a little bit with the temperature, but overall, as an average, over the past month or two, I'm still right around 19 and a half to 20, somewhere in there, which I think is really respectable. You know, you're not going to get a whole lot better than that when it is really, really cold. You know, your truck does have to work a good bit harder when it is that cold, just as you would or anything else would. So I think that's pretty all right. What are you experiencing?
Yeah,
there?
so I'm experiencing a similar thing. As I got the truck in the warmer months, I was about 20 miles to the gallon average for the several months after that, and then as it started to get colder, it could steadily drop off. And I could definitely see that when you go into the Eco app that's in your infotainment. You can look at that and see it kind of stepped off, kind of like a staircase. And right now, since it has been a little bit colder, it's definitely been lower in the 17-18 range, because I do have a short city driving commute to school and back to where I live.
Right, and I mean, obviously these numbers are just temporary. They're subject to change really all the time, and you know, I'm sure as springtime and summer comes, we'll see more change in the numbers, but we'll keep you updated on all of that as we see it. So we did have a pretty busy weekend this past weekend, and if you follow us on Instagram, you may have already seen this, but one of our buddies in the off-road club does have a 3rd gen 4Runner, and it is a later model. I believe it's 2002, and it doesn't have the rear locker that some of the earlier ones did. So, you know, my truck does have that rear e-locker, and off-road, he could definitely tell that, you know, I was not struggling nearly as badly as he was. So he did want one of those, and we did get that installed for him, and everything seems to be working out just fine. But you know, those early 3rd gen 4Runners and the early 1st generation Tacomas are basically the same platform, more or less the same parts. So we will have that video coming out before too long, and hopefully you'll be interested in that. Also, last night actually, we installed my new front bumper. You know, I was involved in that hit and run, and it messed up the center bumper insert there. We have had a couple questions on how to install one of those, and we will have the video coming at you all probably at the end of this week. So be sure and stay tuned for that. So moving into this week's news, it looks like our very own governor here in Virginia, Bob Goodlatte, is working pretty hard to get rid of ethanol in our fuel. So around here, most of the major fuel brands do have at least 10% ethanol. I believe that's a mandate, actually, and he's trying to abolish that. You know, when we were talking about putting ethanol in fuel way back when, it seemed like a good idea. You know, biofuels are a good idea if executed properly, but unfortunately, you know, ethanol is not very good for older vehicles. A lot of people have been experiencing problems with it, and you know, it's actually a net energy loss to create ethanol, so it really doesn't make sense to do it at all. But hopefully we can get rid of that before too long. Now, if this bill does get passed, it will not prohibit ethanol, but it just won't make it quite as abundant, and you know, you won't see it quite as much, and hopefully we'll be able to get, you know, 100% pure gasoline before too long again.
Right. So I think there's some Ford news that we were looking into. Ford is coming out with their own version of Subaru's EyeSight, so it's going to be different than it, but it is going to have, you know, pre-collision mitigation and pedestrian watch and all that stuff, and it'll also be able to work at nighttime, I assume working off of the headlights. And it has this cool technology where it will be looking for the shapes of people, different heights and sizes, so, you know, it's not going to miss anybody. It's going to be able to mitigate that collision, and it will be coming out in the 2018 model year and debuting on the Ford Fiesta, Mustang, and F-150. So that'll be pretty cool to see and working out on the streets.
Right, and you know, we've seen similar technology, you know, with radar and cameras and everything paired together in other vehicles, but you know, not a whole lot in trucks quite yet. I believe Volvo has a system, and that one's pretty advanced, and also Subaru, like he was talking about. But you know, this should be a really good improvement for Ford, especially the Mustang, because they seem to be having a lot of issues with those crashing into crowds of people leaving cars and coffee. So yeah, that should definitely be a great idea for that. But all of that will be an option. You know, if you don't want all that, you don't have to get it. So you know, the more options, the better, as far as we're concerned. Right. So that pretty much wraps up everything we have to talk about this week. Thank you all very much for tuning in. Have a fantastic week, everybody. We'll catch you next time.
See you guys.